Welcome to the show, guys. Excited to have you here today. This is Basim and Brian with CryptoGrow.me. We've got a great topic today. We're going to cover Cardano Stake Pools, why you should consider staking to them, why they're even a thing, why they exist, and a little bit of details. So I've got one of our resident experts, Brian. He's modest. He's going to say he's not an expert, but he knows quite a bit about this stuff, and I'm going to pick his brain a little bit, and also going to add a little bit of color here as we go. But the first thing that we want to talk about is, first of all, to understand why stake pools even exist, we have to understand what the difference between a proof of work protocol is versus a proof of stake protocol, right? Brian, why don't you give us a little bit of a understanding of what proof of work is and maybe an example of one?
So proof of work is probably the most glaring example is Bitcoin. So what you're doing is you're using energy and computational resources to solve complex mathematical equations to earn Bitcoin. And that is kind of the proof of work model. You're taking energy, using energy for high power computers to solve really, really complex cryptographic equations so that you can earn it as a reward. Now, let's talk about kind of the history of proof of work. But when Bitcoin first launched as an actual, investable asset, you could do mining, as they call it. Put mining using your normal computer, PC, your Mac. The equations weren't as complicated that it could not be solved with just basically a home resource. Now the equations have become more and more complex, and it's actually designed to do that way. It's supposed to become harder and harder to earn those resources. In fact, I read that the last Bitcoin will be mined in the year 2140. So you can imagine that we still got a long way to go in order for all the Bitcoin to be out there on the market. So that's proof of work, basically using the energy that you have to generate a piece of a Bitcoin or a whole Bitcoin itself. Now, if you do this by yourself, it can be quite hard to earn the same reward over time. So right now, I think when you solve an equation, you earn about just over 6 Bitcoin. And back when it first started, again, using a home resource, you could earn 50 per block. Now it's much harder. It requires a lot more computational resources, a lot more advanced equipment, a lot more energy to produce that same amount of, let's just say per day, Bitcoin per day. And today, most Bitcoin mining operations are either very large, almost corporate level investment into mining, or they're pooled in resources of pools of people using that to compute and to earn Bitcoin. So that's kind of the proof of work model.
Yeah, so it's really interesting because basically they're throwing out an equation out there, and these computers are using a brute force attack, which means they're just trying every possible answer until they get the right one.
Correct, yeah.
And so if your computer can process through thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of different of these long numbers to solve this equation in a second, then you have a better likelihood of actually getting the reward.
Absolutely. And another thing is that, when Bitcoin first started, every reward was, I think, 50 coins. Mm-hmm. And as their halving has happened, so over the last, right now it's 2021, in the last 11 years, I think when the miners were starting to do their job, it's gone down to, I think it's like 6.25 is now the reward for a solution. So you can understand that the rewards are becoming less and less. The need for computational power is going higher and higher, but also the value of Bitcoin has gone higher and higher. Yeah. So there's some trade-offs. But it's interesting because, again, you're basically competing for the reward, which I think a lot of Bitcoiners like, because you may get a lot or you may get nothing. And it just depends on who gets the solution first.
Yeah. And so if you have a small personal computer, for example, and you're trying to mine Bitcoin on there, you might get lucky, and the first number you throw out there is actually the answer.
Possible.
It's possible. But it's actually more likely that if you have a high-powered machine that you're going to be going through, and by the time that the personal computer does 10, you've done 100,000. And so if you have a high-powered computer, your 100,000 is more likely to find the answer earlier. And if you have 100 the high-powered computers, you're probably even more likely to do it. And so what happens is it becomes a problem where there becomes a little bit of a centralization due to people who have more resources behind them. And these are all issues that some of the other types of protocols try to address. And specifically, we're going to talk about proof of stake. So let's talk about a little bit about Cardano's proof of stake. There's other cryptocurrencies which use a proof of stake protocol as well. There's some slight nuances in it, so we're going to kind of speak more specifically to Cardano on this particular discussion. But tell us a little bit about proof of stake, how that works, and how that might be different than a proof of work protocol.
Some of the cryptocurrencies out there and some of the people who are mining understood that there was going to be an energy problem, that there was going to be, the concerns about energy consumption and the cost of energy consumption would be, make that the underlying asset, somewhat, unprofitable or unattainable, depending on how you look at it. So specifically, Cardano came out and they tried to address this using the proof of stake model, where they address the energy consumption issue and also the cost of effectively earning rewards, earning the coin. So what happens is that instead of using the computers themselves to mine for the work, you're using the underlying asset as a means of computational power to earn those rewards. So with proof of stake, especially with things like Cardano, you have what they call validators, not miners. And your stake, your coins are directly correlated how powerful your computational power for that validator to earn those rewards and different epochs, or how do you describe it? So, but again, it's a more consistent reward system. I think you can, instead of an all or nothing kind of approach, or maybe just a little bit or a lot, you do kind of get a more consistent reward system with a stake pool than you would with a mining rig or mining operation. And again, there's a lot of competition for mining resources. Computer chips. We're running into an issue where there's the issue with Moore's law, where the more computational need is not being met with chip supply. So if you take a look in the market, they're actually the miners themselves and the chips that run them are actually getting more and more expensive, because demand from miners, especially these huge mining operations, are taking a lot of these resources and making it, I would say, for the new entrant to get a fully, competitive rig set up in a mining operation. And I think that's what stake pooling does. You just basically need to own the underlying asset and basically lend it to a pool, and then you lending it to the pool earns you rewards there. So you don't need giant computers, you don't need racks and racks of miners. You just basically need your phone, really. You just stake your coins to a pool, and then that pool gives you a more consistent reward.
Yeah. So specifically with Cardano, the way I like to think about it is, proof of stake is showing that you have skin in the game.
Absolutely.
So the whole idea is, with using this protocol, is how do you ensure that people don't do malicious activity and perform malicious actions on the protocol and things like that. And so what Cardano does is it breaks up the blockchain into epochs, and then those epochs are further broken down into slots. To be a slot leader, that's how you actually earn rewards on Cardano. And so Cardano distributes the slot leads based on the amount of Cardano that you have backing you. Now, in order to get more Cardano backing you, you can pool resources from a lot of people, because I, as an individual, I might have technical knowledge on how to set up a node, but I might not necessarily, I might not necessarily have enough resources. And Brian, he might have a whole bunch of resources, but might not necessarily have enough technical knowledge. So Brian can put his resources behind me and say, hey, I trust this guy to perform transactions in a good manner. And then based on the amount of resources that are pooled behind you, Cardano, and it through an algorithm, releases slot leads through the Cardano blockchain to mint blocks.
And another thing to talk about is just stake pools in general, because there's a number of coins and tokens that have staking, and there's almost different rules behind each one of them. Yeah. So for if you're doing it on one exchange, I experienced this with another coin, is that I tried to pull my coin out, and it took me almost a month to get it released, and for me to exchange or send it somewhere else. I couldn't send it anywhere. So with Cardano, specifically the coin below at ADA, I think we need to be specific about that.
Yeah.
The coin is actually, especially if you're using a Yoroi wallet or Yoroi wallet, you can remove it any time. And it's basically, you can stake it anytime, remove it anytime. I think the use is, it's very user friendly, and for whatever reason, if you need to unstake and get a fiat currency or exchange it for someone else, you're not in that lockup period.
Yeah. Well, actually, I mean, not only are you not in a lockup period, what people don't realize, if they're delegating or putting their money behind a stake pool, they actually never actually lose custody of the coin itself at all. The coin always stays in your wallet. And so whether you're in a Deadalus or a Yoroi wallet, the coin is always with you. And all you're generally doing is basically giving your vote that's associated with your particular coin, putting it behind an operator. And so that's what a Cardano Stake Pool is. It's pooling together resources so that you can get more rewards, and then that pool organizer gets paid a small fee for organizing, and then distributes the rewards amongst everybody that's in the pool. So just to give an example, let's say there's 1 million ADA out there, which we know there's way more, but let's say there's 1 million ADA. If I have a stake pool that has 100,000 ADA in it, then I should be getting 10% of all the rewards for the entire ecosystem. If Brian has 20% of the ADA, then he should do the same. But what Cardano actually does is they want to create a more decentralized platform. And so what they say is, hey, we're going to limit that, or we're going to create a saturation point at about 64 million ADA, so that there's no one node that gets too many slots. You see what I'm saying? And so that's kind of how it works. So really, when you're going to pick a stake pool, you don't want to get in the one with the most amount of ADA, because at some point it becomes a diminishing return.
Yeah, and it's a more egalitarian way of taking a look at staking.
Yeah.
Again, I would say you do your research, go out there, take a look at what the different, what these really are software projects. See which software project is doing, I guess, the best for you, not necessarily the one that's like the most attractive. Because there are some out there that promise like a 10% return, which is fantastic, but at the same time, there are some caveats to it that you need to research. And again, a lot of the stuff that we've done is a little bit of trial by error, a little bit of research. And trial by error is probably a lot more expensive than research. So spend some time on it. Don't just jump in and because you may regret. And I think we both done something like that in previously.
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk a little bit about now you've decided that you understand a little bit about what a stake pool is.
Yeah.
And you want to go ahead and start delegating to the stake pool. So let's talk about a little bit of the process about what you should be considering when you're delegating to a stake pool. So just so you know, the actual amount of rewards that you're going to get from a stake pool, there's an algorithm by Cardano Foundation where it's supposed to equal out to about 4.5 to 6-ish%, regardless of the stake pool. There is some difference in there, but let's talk about some of the information that you need to gather about the stake pool that you're in, and what you should be considering when you're actually looking to delegate to a stake pool.
Oh, absolutely. You understand too is that just because you're not mining, you still are competing for earning resources. So different stake pools are very large. They've reached that 64 million. They have 64 million ADA saturation point, and then some of them are just getting started, and they're looking for people to stake with them. Now, the ones that are more mature, I'm going to say they're mature because they've reached that limit. It could be that there's one guy who just put 64 million ADA into a pool.
Yeah, he bought it when it was nothing.
Yeah, he bought it when it was nothing, exactly. Or that's a few. I just call them investors. There's a few investors who want to stake with that person because they know that person, or they run they understand that there's a consistent reward with that pool. So every pool will advertise what their initial stake is from the people who started it, their fees, and also what they hope to return as a return on assets, or ROA, with that stake. One of the great things about, again, with Cardano is that you can actually you can dedicate your resources to a stake pool, or you can pull them out at any time. That's something you need to understand too, is that different coins have different, and on different exchanges have different, I guess, lockup periods. So for instance, I experienced this with another cryptocurrency, which I won't mention, is that I put it into a stake pool and it was earning an 8% return, which was fantastic. But when I tried to pull it out, let's say there was a move in the market I was trying to take advantage of, I couldn't get that underlying asset for almost a month. And I was watching those days count down and the market move, and I missed some windows. And so you have to understand, when you stake to different pools, whether it's with Cardano, whether it's with another coin, just understand, especially if it's on an exchange, understand what your lockup period is, because you may not like the fact that your underlying asset, especially if you're a high frequency trader, is locked up for a certain amount of days or even a certain amount of weeks, and it could really mess up what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, actually. And that's actually something I want to talk about a little bit, because, you mentioned something that was very interesting, and that is the lockup period. So, well, with Cardano, the way that it works is there's not a lockup period, but in order for you to start earning rewards, you have to delegate. And in the first epics are 5-day periods in which slots are provided. In the first epic, you're not going to earn any rewards. The second epic, you start earning rewards, but you don't actually get them. The third epic, your rewards are compiled, but you still don't get them. You don't start actually receiving the rewards until the fourth epic. And so that's kind of like you getting into the game. So it's going to take about 15 to 20 days for you to start seeing rewards through Cardano. That's if you're delegating through a native wallet of either Yoroi or Deadalus. Brian mentioned something that was very interesting. He said, I was on an exchange and I was delegating. When you're delegating through an exchange, those exchanges have fees, and a lot of times they also have lockup periods which are not part of this ecosystem. So they might say, okay, you've got to lock up your ADA with us for 60 days, 90 days. That's not required by Cardano. That's required by the exchange. And so if you're doing that through an exchange, you have to look at both what are the parameters set forth by the actual ecosystem, but then also what are the parameters set forth by the exchange. And so that's something very interesting to note, because I think a lot of people, they are buying things on exchanges and they see, I can provide liquidity here, I can delegate here, but they don't realize that they might be getting a better deal by going directly and downloading the native wallet and then delegating directly. So we've got a video on how to actually download the Yoroi wallet and delegate through there. I'll post it right up here. But yeah, so that's something that's very interesting to note when it comes to the stake pools. Let's break that down real quick, just so people can understand how the stake pool operator gets paid. So the stake pool operator really gets paid on two different points. The first point is every stake pool, regardless of size, running it, everything, gets 340 ADA as a reward for running the pool.
Mm-hmm. Basically, it's a licensor fee. Really, got to think about that.
And that's paid by the Cardano Foundation. It's not paid by out of your rewards. The second fee is that most stake pools charge a percentage of the total rewards earned in that epic. So if we earned 100 rewards as a group, the stake pool operator would get the 340, for example, plus he would get a percentage.
Yeah, a small percentage.
A percentage. And usually they're ranging anywhere between 3 and 10%, but let's call it 5%. That's what CryptoGrow.me charges. So they'll get 5%, and the remaining 95 ADA are distributed evenly amongst the pooled participants, depending on how much they've staked.
Correct.
So, since everybody is running the stake pool, they're charging different amounts, there might be a temptation to always go for who's charging the least. What are some things people should consider besides just the fees associated with it?
Transparency of who you're staking with. A lot of these stake pools have a corresponding website to who is staking it. I know that ours is going to have, the founders of our stake pool, what they do, what they've done. They have, links to more education. The more content that can be provided about who you're staking with, I think the better. I've seen some stake pools that literally have a website that's, I mean, it was created straight out of 1997, and it got it's a one pager that it just seems like, oh, this doesn't tell me anything. And I've seen other stake pools where the amount of information, it's almost like they're a Cardano or .org affiliate, and they provide as much information because, again, the strength of the underlying asset is the people who participate and the education of those who participate in what the underlying asset can do. So I think that we're trying to provide as much information about what it does, how it works. And to me, transparency is everything. You know, if the more I know about something, the more comfortable and trust I have in that person or asset. So I would just take a look at that, see how much information you're being provided. Because if it's not a lot, you know, it may look really enticing to stake with them, but I mean, you know, they could shut down that node or they can shut down that stake pool, and then you're not earning anything. You still have your ADA, but when that next epoch comes around, you didn't earn anything. You're like, what's going on?
Yeah, and that's one of the things I want to get at. So the transparency is huge. What are they doing for the Cardano community? How are they help creating a more decentralized platform? We try to do that by providing informational podcasts like this one, by publishing information, providing resources. We're having monthly webinars where people can ask us live questions. We're bringing in experts from the community to discuss Cardano and other cryptocurrencies. But also, what is the technology behind the stake pool? Who was running it? What kind of technical expertise do they have? How can they ensure that the platform stays up and running? Are they using commercialized web services? What are they doing? Are they just putting it on a computer at their house that has unreliable internet and it goes out every so often? I mean, those things are going to affect your rewards. You might be expecting to get 5.5%, and then maybe they're charging 1%. But if they're offline half the time, you're not going to get rewards for that. So I mean, you want to really understand what the capabilities of the stake pool operators are to keep things running all the time. What are their redundancies? How did they set this up? Do they have a technical background? Are they invested in the Cardano ecosystem and making it more decentralized and in a better platform?
Yeah, absolutely. There's just again, you wouldn't invest in a let's say a stock or an equity if you didn't know anything about it. You know, if you didn't know what the product they made, if you didn't know what the financial resources behind them there, if you didn't even know their leadership, you know, you would say, oh, why am I investing with this? It's the same thing with a stake pool. You need to understand who you're staking that Cardano with. How reliable is that stake pool? Is it just going to be someone where they're just a one and done, they earn one epoch and they shut it down? Or is it something that's going to, like a pool that's going to be online for, you know, until the lights go out, so to speak. So again, the transparency I think is incredibly important. The technical know-how and the technical reliability of that pool is incredibly important. But also, again, your knowledge is actually the most important. So do your research, understand that a lot of these resources for cryptocurrency is free and it's out there, and just do your best to understand before you start staking your resources to a pool.
Perfect. Well, I mean, I think we've covered at a high level a lot of things. All of these things have a lot more detail that we can dig into, you know, all that type of stuff. But we want to make sure that you just guys had a high level understanding. Please feel free to leave comments, ask questions, interact with us through the website. We're going to be having webinars. Look out for those, join those. But we're here as a resource for you guys. Make sure that you guys, if you are delegating, please consider delegating to CryptoGrow.me's stake pool, Grow1, GROW1. Like I said, I have a video we're going to link showing you how to actually do that. Brian, anything kind of like closing thoughts you might want to add?
Yeah, I would say that, again, this is not financial advice. This is just education purposes based on our experiences and our research. I would say also take a look out there and do your own research, as I have stated many times. But understand that the community is only as strong as your knowledge and your contribution to it. So use staking your Cardano to a pool actually helps the network grow stronger. And you know, one of the things I think that's also attractive about Cardano that I think doesn't get a lot of advertising or spotlight is what they're doing for third world countries and developing nations as far as trying to get those who are unbanked and those who have could put resources to a decentralized financial network. They're trying to get them on so that, again, maybe in our lifetime, but certainly in our kids' lifetimes, transacting with someone in Uganda or somewhere in South Sudan or Djibouti or any of one of the countries that you wouldn't expect your dollar to go, maybe your Cardano can, and the trade of goods, services, information, or any other asset can be much easier in the future. So it's really interesting what Cardano is trying to do in those parts of the world.
No, awesome. I appreciate you joining me today and providing all your thoughts and feedback. Some great information here. Guys, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Give us your feedback, your thoughts, what else you want us to cover on this channel. And consider staking with Grow One. From Brian and Basim, CryptoGrow.me, thanks a lot, and we'll see you next time. Peace.